Emily from Homemade Emily Jane. Today I'm going to teach you how to make 8 half square triangles out of just 2 squares of fabric. So we'll start off by sharing how to calculate how big your squares of fabric need to be. Before we get started with the tutorial, I want to invite you to go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel where you'll get notifications every time I post a new quilting video. Alright, let's get started. In order to do this, you will take your finished half square triangle block size and add 1 inch and then multiply that number by 2. So as an example, if you were to want a 3-inch finished half square triangle, 3.5 inch unfinished, you would take 3 inches plus 1 would be 4 times 2 is 8. So you would use 2 8-inch squares to make 8 3-inch finished half square triangle blocks. Here is a really neat image for you to go ahead and screenshot if you want to save these numbers for future use. I also have it up on my blog post, which is linked in the description below. So go ahead and grab it, save it, pin it, do whatever you need with it so that you have these numbers ready for you to go at a moment's notice. So now that we have our calculations done, I'm going to teach you how to use your 2 squares of fabric to make 8 half square triangles. The first thing you need to do to get started is cut your squares to the same size based on the calculation that you did earlier. These are both right side up, so next we will take one and on the wrong side you will draw 2 diagonal lines. So for this one, because it is a little bit of a lighter background, you can use a erasable pen and a ruler and draw the line like so, and then again with the other diagonal like shown. The other option, if for instance if you wanted to do it on a dark fabric, you could use something like this chalk pencil. So your call on that. The next step is to place your 2 squares right sides together, and we will sew along each diagonal a 1/4 inch on each side of each diagonal. You'll end up sewing 4 diagonal seams, and then we're going to trim later. So now here we are at the sewing machine. I've already pinned my 2 squares right sides together, as you can see, and I'll go ahead and sew along each diagonal a 1/4 inch away from the line. Always be sure to stop before you hit a pin. So now you can see our 2 diagonal lines and stitches on each side of the line. This next step is not exactly necessary, but I have found it super helpful later on when I am trimming my half square triangles. So once you've sewn your lines, this is where I like to starch or at least iron, because it can tend to have a little bit of waviness because we did just sew on the bias. So I'm going to go ahead and take my spray bottle and spritz all over, and then I'll go ahead and iron it. But I do want to point out that the ink that I used is heat erasing, so the lines that I drew will erase at this point. So now you can see the lines did erase, but overall the blocks are just laying so much more flat, and having that little bit of starch on them will make trimming a little bit easier later on. And it's especially important because you can easily distort half square triangles, so we're trying to avoid that. And so by adding the starch, we can hopefully not distort them. All right, this is where things get a little bit more exciting. So here we go. We've got our squares sewn together, 2 diagonal lines pressed flat with starch. Now you take your ruler and you're going to trim halfway between your 2 lines. And then without moving your fabric, you rotate the ruler to cut on the other diagonal. And then again, this direction. So you line it up nice and flat and straight on. And then one more cut. It really helps here if you have a rotating cutting mat. All right, there we go. Now we have our 8 half square triangles. And just to show you, here's what one half square triangle looks like. If you watched my 4 at a time half square triangle video, then you've already seen how to trim the half square triangles, but I'm going to go ahead and share it here as well. There's 2 different methods I'm going to show you. One of them uses a classic square ruler that has a diagonal line on it. The other option is using the Clearly Perfect Slattered Trimmers by New Leaf Stitches. So I will show both ways. We'll start off with the regular square method. So for this option, you will press your half square triangle open before you trim. You will line up your diagonal line on your ruler with the diagonal seam of your half square triangle, and then make sure that there is overage on all 4 sides all the way around, because we're going to be trimming it down to size. And this would be your unfinished half square triangle size. So what I'll do is trim the first to the top and the right side because I'm right-handed, and then I will rotate my cutting mat and trim the other 2 sides here. And now we have our perfectly trimmed half square triangle, and our little bits of trimmings can go in the trash. Next up, we will do the trimming with the Clearly Perfect Slatted Triangle trimmer. And we are going to start with the triangle not yet trimmed. I'm going to do it on this side because I can very clearly see the line of stitches. And so with this ruler, we will line up the line of stitches with the dotted line on the ruler. And then trim off our dog ears. And then trim along both sides. Whoops, my ruler slipped. And then trim off the other dog ear. And now we have it trimmed a little quicker than the other method, and now we'll go ahead and press it so that it is a perfect half square triangle. And that's how you make 8 half square triangles at one time. So now I'm going to go ahead and trim all of these, but I'll let you go enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this tutorial super helpful and useful. And if you want to learn more, go ahead and check out my website, homemadeemilyjane.com. Feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel and be sure to check out these other fun quilty videos.